making some kind of assertion at a meeting, if that would subdue some of these parents that didn't want to say something. Now they're afraid to appear of the eyes knocking on their door with the SWAT team.
Correct. That's one of the dangers associated with that action. So I think we're wrapping now, and I know there's more questions, but I just appreciate the opportunity to speak to you.
Hey, you couldn't have a better Department of Education Commissioner than this year right here. So, I'm considered a right-wing radical because I believe in the Constitution, I believe in the rule of law. That's extremism today, but that's where I believe our government needs to be. So when I hear that our Department of Education has created rules that take away your rights as parents, to me that's a bunch of hooey. Because ultimately, the power resides in us. And you're going to hear me say that more than once. We're the government. We don't delegate our rights and then lose our power when we say, you can speak for us on this issue. We can come back and say, no, we don't like what you're doing here. And it's offensive when they say, we got this, sit down and shut up.
And they don't respond, they don't.
But how does one do that in the middle of a meeting?
We got some people who are going to talk. So before I go on, we have snacks, we have waters. I just want to make sure everybody knows about that. It's up against the wall. If you're not happy, people say, you hear it all the time, if you're not happy about what's going on, you need to run. And you do. But you shouldn't have to wait until somebody's term is up in order to get your grievances addressed, right? Some of these people have just won. They have 3-year terms. You got to wait 3 years for them to serve? People need redress. Part 1st, Article 8, in all those constitutions that we gave you today, the New Hampshire Constitution, states accountability of magistrates and officers, public's right to know. All power residing originally in and being derived from the people. All the magistrates and officers of government are their substitutes and agents, and at all times accountable to them. What part of that don't these people understand? At all times accountable to us. They are our agents. Government, therefore, should be open, accessible, accountable, and responsive. Is that how you feel when you go before your school boards? Are they responsive to you? Are they open? Are they accountable? To that end, the public's right of access to governmental proceedings and records shall not be unreasonably restricted. The public also has the right to an orderly, lawful, and accountable government. We have a right that they listen to us and respond to us. School boards, Article 8, first Article 8. That's in our Constitution. Laws do not override the Constitution, folks.
But I thought it said we didn't have the right to speak at a school board meeting.
What's that?
He said, the gentleman, Frank, said that we couldn't, that speaking at a school board
He
meeting
did.
is not
Well, we have a couple
required.
people coming up, and you can ask in the end.
Okay.
The school boards are substitutes and agents. They don't have the authority to remove our consent for them to govern. That's how I view it. I did not relinquish my control of my rights, my vote, my voice, for them to tell me what to do and what not to do. No law can ever abolish the requirement of our consent, and that's the attitude and the arrogance that these people have taken. Now, we do have good people that serve, but not enough. So you have to get up, you have to run, you have to get your community behind you, and we need to do this together, right? You're not alone. That's why we formed the Government Integrity Project. Tom and I, we did this for a long time.
Thank you.
I'm not going to say it takes a village, but it takes a lot of people working together in order to be successful. So, with all ado, I'd like to introduce the next guest speaker. He is the chairman of the House Education Committee. He is a former principal in Maine, a former principal in Alaska, a former acting superintendent. He's developed curriculum. He has an enormous abundance of experience from the educational side. Now he's the chairman of our House Education Committee. He's a wonderful person. I'd like you to welcome Rick Ladd, Representative Rick Ladd. I want to apologize, we're running a little bit over. I got a sense that you guys wanted to continue to hear a little bit more from Commissioner Edelblut. I didn't want to cut him off. You know, if that's a problem, we can rush things up, but you know, these gentlemen who are here, they have a lot to tell you.
Thanks an awful lot, Ken. Is Frank still here? I have a meeting with him tomorrow at 1, so if you have something you want me to impart to him, I'd be glad to do it. I'm Rick Ladd. I come from Haverhill, the one that's up the Connecticut River, not the one in Massachusetts. Yeah, and I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I'm a graduate from the University of Maine, but really a graduate of the School of Hard Knocks. And I believe very much that what I've learned and what I'm using right now to do my job has been OJT, on-the-job training, learning from the public, learning in my military experience when I was that young lieutenant over in Vietnam. And Chow, thank you very much for your presentation here. I advise everybody here, if you want to learn a little bit about what went on during the Cultural Revolution a little bit north of Vietnam in China, read the book by Nguyen Cheng, Life and Death in Shanghai. It's a real piece of literature. She's now in the States. Her family worked for Shell Oil while they were over in China during this Cultural Revolution, and Nguyen went through pure hell and made it to the States. But I'll go on. My experience, I've written curriculum. It's now owned by Down East Magazine over in Maine. Then I got discouraged with Maine, too many people moving in from Massachusetts. I oftentimes advocated cut the bridge down, blow it up, do something. And so I said to my birthing parent, as she said to me this day, have a good day, you non-birthing parent, jokingly. But I said, yeah, we'll move to the ocean. And she had grown up in Yarmouth, Maine, on the ocean back when there were farms there. And I said, well, we'll move to the ocean. She said, great, I'll do it. You can change your job from Winthrop where we are, and we're in Rumford where we are. And I got a job on the Bering Sea. And she said, wrong ocean. But we lived there for 25 years. Our kids all grew up there. They all had wonderful education. In fact, when I came back here to New Hampshire, I felt like this state was about a year lower down the pole than where we had in Alaska, where we had internet connectivity. We had teachers that were coming from all over the states in the country. I could hire teachers which were qualified. It was a hard time keeping them. Many of them decided to go, because they had backgrounds in mathematics and science, to BP oil or to ARCO on the rigs up there in Alaska. But then we came back to the States here, and just for a kick, I decided, well, let's get into politics. I had already been on city council in Homer, Alaska for 3 terms as a school principal. I was also a distinguished national principal up there as well. Came back to the States here, got involved, chaired the select board up in Haverhill, zoning board, planning board, all that good stuff. I was also, like Frank, a water commissioner, and we had to be careful where we had our meetings, not down at the Napa garage, because when 2 people got to get together, that was a majority of the commission. And then got involved with the House and House Education, where I've been now, this is my 14th year, 6 years as chair. It's been a real trip, and sometimes discouraging. But there are some moments which I'm really proud of. and working with my vice chair, Rep. Cordelli, Glen's been a real asset, a wonderful person. And together, we've, over the years here, moved some things forward. We can now tuition to religious private schools, which is really important. That was a real big occurrence. As well as, of course, tuitioning to other public schools and other schools, maybe like a Holderness or Kimball Union. We also approved, I had a son that had taken courses as a freshman over in Rumford, Maine. It was an accredited high school. When we moved to Alaska, they didn't want to accept this course that he had taken in U.S. history because he took it in the wrong grade. He took it as a 9th grader. They taught it in the 10th grade. And they said, no, you got to take in this. This stuff's happening in our state too. We passed a statute last year where the child passes the competency, he's had that course, it goes towards graduation. You don't have to take it again. And that's important. Education freedom account. That's something to be very proud of. Money follows the child now. That $4,600, and even more in some cases, can be applied towards a whole host of alternative learning activities. Professional code of ethics, that and conduct. This is an important document which we wrote, and it's now been approved by JALCAR, and everybody carries that little green book around. I put mine down right in front of me here. I have it everywhere. And the other day, last week, when I'm talking to Frank, Frank pulled his out of his pocket too. This is important. And that was a fantastic gain for us all. Now we can hold people in the buildings accountable, and we can yank their ticket. And that's real, real important. Burden of proof. The burden of proof in special education services now is not on the parent, it's on the school district. We flipped it. And now the parent's not going to have to pay all those litigation costs, those lawyer costs, and be badgered and talked down by the school and worried that something might come back to haunt them. So that's a positive activity that we did. Learn Everywhere program, another one which we've passed. Education tax credit, concurrent and dual enrollment for kids 10th, 11th, and 12th grade so they can come out of high school with almost 1 semester or even 2 semesters under their belt, saving money. Career technical education, we've improved that tremendously, where you don't need a teacher's ticket to be an instructor at a CTE center. If you've had 30 years working in Napa Auto Care and you have all the scientific and the engineering background and their tickets and certification, why can't you teach automotive work in the CTE center? We're doing that. It's what's above the shoulder. It's not the PhD after your name. In fact, I don't have a PhD. I decided that's not for me. I felt that I can do this job with the understanding of working with others and take from Glen, and take from others, take from Melissa, their gifts that they have, and I, as a leader, can utilize that and make decisions which are appropriate. And just lastly here, there's one which we passed this last year, legislation addressing discrimination in the workplace and education. This is one which is going to have a lasting value in this state. And right now, I'm also a trustee with the University System of New Hampshire, and we're dealing with that on the post-secondary level, which is significant. We're having folks come out in these education programs, walking right into our schools, and they're advocating CRT, Project 1619, all that garbage. And they're pushing that in schools, and kids that are ages 9 years old in 4th grade or 5th, 6th grade they're very impressionable. My kids were, and are. And they're coming out believing this stuff is true. Teacher told me. So those are some of the things which we're proud of, but what we're encountering now, and I feel like the little boy that's holding back, putting all your fingers in the dike, all the leaks that we have in education today, there's just not enough fingers now to fill these holes up in the dike. The little Dutch boy. I shouldn't say boy, should I? Well, we're dealing with CRT. We're dealing with this gender identity. And that's what I'm really concerned about. That's going to unravel Title IX girls in athletics. It's subtracting from all those years of effort that the young ladies have made. And you have somebody up there who all of a sudden declares, today my identity is going to be this, and I'm going to run as a girl. I have a daughter who is right now running for the University of Maine and doing very well. But we had this situation occur when she ran at Dartmouth. And she's won the heptathlon for New England. She's an outstanding athlete. Her mother ran for Texas A&M, my daughter. I'm talking my granddaughter there. And there was no contest between the girls and the one that is, male background. The other things we've got to be watching out for right now are they're trying to undo Learning Everywhere program. They're trying to undo charter schools. They're trying to undo all the education choice programs we have because we're taking money away from their programs. And that's where they are. They are control-oriented. They're saying education that we raise through our property taxes can go only to where our folks are. NEA, AFT, School Boards Association, school administrators, I put them all in the same bank right now. Book burning. We have books now that are no longer, should be used in school. Diary of Anne Frank, Jack London's book, Call the Wild. You can go down the list of banned literature. And so we got to stop that. When I was in Guangzhou, China, up the Pearl River there, I went to a school with my wife and we had our 3 kids with us. And we weren't on a big group, we were just with ourselves. I said, I'd like to see a school. So we went into the school, and my wife being a librarian said, I'd like to see the library. We went into the library, and Mark looks at me and says, Rick, where are the books? Where are the books? What the book was, there's one little book. This one right here. Mao's book. That little red book was on the shelves. That's the only one in a library this size of a room. I don't want to go there in this country. I do not want to go there. We will not go there in New Hampshire. What about dumbing down the standards? What's the percentile of kids that are proficient in mathematics in the statewide? Wyndham's a little higher. Congratulations, Wyndham. But what's the state average?
46.
It's close to 44. 44% of our students in the 11th grade who take the SAT are proficient in math. If I went to Hitchner, or if I went to New England Wire my way, the first thing they say when we want to employ a kid is, what's their math like? What kind of work ethic do they have? Out of every 10 kids they interview, 1 they hire maybe. It's a sad scenario. So there's a number of things which we're putting our fingers in the dike and trying to stop. But it's getting to the point where I was reading in the Federal Register just the other day, and this is a Federal Register where the Department of Education in D.C. puts forth all their proposals for rules and regulations governing various areas of education. I looked at their priorities for their new civics program and American history. Prioritize and include racial, ethnical, cultural, and linguistic diversity perspectives into teaching and learning. Sounds like CRT me. Importance of including and acknowledging the New York Times landmark 1619 project. That was right in the proposed rules. The report goes on to state racial, ethnicity, culturally and linguistically response teaching and learning practice contribute to what, quote, has been called an identity-safe learning environment. That's where we're going. We've got to stop this. And it's not being called CRT, it's under the disguise of all the other definitions. Diversity. Now, I want to just refer to the one area statute. I opened up the education statutes about that thick. Unfortunately, since I've been in, it's grown from that to that. The first page, the first line, 21-N:1. The General Court finds that students, parents, general citizenry, local school teachers and administrators, local governments, local school boards, school administrative units, and state government have a joint and shared responsibility for the quality of education delivered through the public education system in the state of New Hampshire. It's not just owned by the school boards, where you'll hear they own curriculum and instruction. The quality of education is our responsibility. All these organizations have a responsible position in determining what we define as quality. That's the first statement in the law books, the first page. Education is no question, is big business. Huge business. A lot of money in education. $762 billion annually spent in this country on education. Average cost of educating a student in this state, approximately $20,000. I served on the commission this last year and a half that dealt with how we're going to define an adequate education, how we're going to cost it out. The final vote was 16-1. Number one right here. Why? Because I believe education is not to be great just due to dollars. There's a human element. There's aspiration of the community. There's family involvement. There's attitude of leadership and supervision. There's attitude of the classroom teacher. When we looked at this whole commission study and spent $500,000, that was not part of the equation. So there's a lot more to how we're going to establish. Is that the bell for me? Okay, I know I gotta move on here. I'm sorry. We've talked about change in the Education Committee often. And I guarantee in the crowd in front when we're having the hearings, there's always going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 lawyers. And every one of those lawyers come forth with a different perspective. Depends upon who's paying them. But there's always a consistent element amongst AFP, NEA, School Administrators Association, and now we're starting to see the School Boards Association flow into that same silo. And it's all about the money. It's sadly that. When we conduct our meetings and our hearings there, I like to conduct a meeting where you, the public, come in. And I'm respectful of every opinion. Everybody that wants to give testimony. That's our job. We have to be magnanimous. You have to take that high road. You have to listen. It doesn't mean you have to believe, but you want to be courteous. And school boards, when they're conducting their meetings and their hearings, and parents such as you come in, and you see what the National School Boards Association wrote in the letter to the president just within the last month. I thought when I was reading that letter, and I've got the letter behind if anybody wants to see it, I thought I was looking at the Patriot Act. I thought I was looking at something where parents are now being defined as terrorists. And in fact, they used the word terrorist within that letter. So, you know, it's okay for a parent to come in and show displeasure. It's okay for a parent to come in and be angry and emotional. I would be too. In fact, I've done it in the other state where my grandkids are going to school in Vermont. They're wearing masks over there too. And you should see the little preschool kid come home at night with his mask just dripping crap out of it. He can't wait to get out of that building. In fact, they showed school pictures of him the other day. His mask down here, he won't wear it.
Good for him.
And the junior high kids are in there. The teacher said, reverse your mask. The American flag was on the front side. They said, are you sure you want my mask to be reversed? Yes, you turn that mask over. The other side said, vote Trump. Okay, so I've been given the hook. It's time to come out of here. But I'll tell you, as a legislative body, we can't do this alone. We are in this together, and parents are key. If we want to fix this, you are going to have to step up to the plate too. And don't get discouraged as you come across one of these school boards that's not listening. There are others out there, so please don't give it up. We'll work together, and we will fix education in this state and this country. Thank you.
So I'm going to just cut this brief, but this is the theme today is the Constitution, and I wanted to mention that we do have some issues in our schools. In Wyndham, when I was on the school board, you're supposed to celebrate Constitution Day every year, which is September 17th.
Mr. Hillside.
We had two different teachers one year. One of them made a statement that we are going to talk about the Constitution for 5 minutes because I was told I had to. And the other teacher said, today is a day we're supposed to celebrate the Constitution, but there's nothing about the Constitution worth celebrating. So when you hear statements like that, you get very concerned about what is it that our children are really learning. We had a letter go out from the principal of the elementary school, and on Constitution Day, the school district had accepted a donation of 1,500 constitutions, which is half the students in the district. Now, prior to me being on the school board, this gentleman who donates these constitutions every year, prior to that, he made an offer to donate constitutions for every student every year, and they always turned him down. And when I was on the school board, I forced a vote, and the first vote was 3-2 against accepting the constitutions. So it was public. And by the end of that meeting, all the school board members realized what type of deep water they were in, and they called for reconsideration, and they accepted the constitutions, but only half, and only the parents signed the form saying that they would allow their kids to receive the Constitution. That's how controversial this document is. And this year, the principal of the elementary school sent out a letter asking parents to actually approve that their children would receive a copy of the Constitution. That's a sad statement of our education system. So Chief Judge Roberts made a statement, which is very appropriate. You can't fight for your rights if you don't know what they are. How will our children fight for their rights if they're not taught what they are? Now, I'm sure all of us are teaching our children our rights, but not every parent has the same due diligence as all of you do. So we do all have to work together. We do have to change the system. And we need to make sure that our children have the knowledge to make sure that their children have the knowledge. Ronald Reagan made a statement that we don't pass freedom on to our children in the bloodstream. They have to be taught what it is. And someday we're all going to be in our Sunday set years telling our children and our children's children what it was once like to live in a free country. That's what our Constitution represents. So we all have to work together to make sure that never happens. The next person coming up is State Rep Glen Cordelli. He's a wonderful individual. He's a fighter for education of our kids. He's all about education freedom accounts. I believe he sponsored the bill. I'd like to welcome him up here and to share his thoughts about what we can do in order to make sure that our kids get the education that they're supposed to with your input and your blessing.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you to the Government Integrity Project. How many of you are parents? Oh, most everybody. Great. How many of you are angry parents? I think the same hands just went up. How many of you are domestic terrorists? Well, I got a few. Even school board members, a couple state reps, okay? Well, I'm angry too. You've heard a lot about what's going on. We all should be angry. Commissioner Edelblut talked about the letter from the National School Boards Association and the Attorney General and also the New Hampshire School Boards Association. But one thing he didn't mention in this New Hampshire School Boards Association response was that the national letter took away from the discussion of disruptions at our school board meetings and accompanying threats, harassments, and intimidation. They believe they're domestic terrorists also. Many people, unfortunately, believe that you should just sit down, shut up, and pay those local school taxes. They don't want to hear from you. They don't want to hear your opinions. You have to leave it to the professionals. They know best. We had a state senator in the last elections who made that comment in one of our education meetings. Well, we put that video, it went national, and she got defeated by a freshman first-time candidate. That's the power you have. You can vote these people out. I know a few would like to vote me out also, but that's a different story. I don't know if some of you saw a recent Virginia gubernatorial candidate debate. The Democrat governor, candidate for governor, said, and I quote, "I don't think parents should be telling schools what they should teach." But you know what? He went to private school, and he sent his kids to private school. Hypocrisy. We have members in the New Hampshire legislature who have voted against education freedom, but sent their kids to private schools. Our Secretary of Education, U.S. Secretary of Education, not our Commissioner, refused to say that parents are the primary stakeholders in their children's education. Great thing I just read today, it's a group in Florida, Moms for Liberty. They're selling t-shirts that say, "We do not co-parent with the government."
There we go.
I just want to mention two Supreme Court cases, U.S. Supreme Court cases that bear on what we've been talking about. The first is from 1925, Pierce versus Society of Sisters, and I quote, "The fundamental theory of liberty upon which all governments in this union repose excludes any general power of the state to standardize its children by forcing them to accept instruction from public teachers only." I love this line. "The child is not a mere creature of the state." And next is New York Times versus Sullivan in 1964. "Thus we consider this case against the background of a profound national commitment to the principle that debate on public issues should be uninhibited, robust, and wide open, and it may well include vehement, caustic, and sometimes unpleasantly sharp attacks on government and public officials. You have the right. You have to exercise it." Let me tell you just two quick stories about what's happening in my district. Many of you are familiar with something that's going on around the state in petitions to call for special meetings of the town. And in most of those cases, the petition includes a warrant article about masking and calling for parental choice for masks. In Moultonborough, they did the petition, they had the town meeting, and the measure lost. In some districts, the school board is saying that we don't even have to have that meeting, even though there's a valid petition. But the law says it's a shall, and they're ignoring it. But in Moultonborough, the one resident filed a right-to-know request for correspondence between the school board and their lawyer and the New Hampshire School Boards Association. The superintendent responded that, while it's attorney-client privilege, we're not going to give you the communication with the lawyer or with the New Hampshire School Boards Association. They're trying to keep this quiet, under the covers. In Moultonborough, the Governor Wentworth School District, a month ago, school board meeting, half dozen parents came into an auditorium 3 or 4 times the size of this room. They came in without masks. Oh yes, there is a masking policy. Everyone has to wear a mask in the schools. They came in without masks. They were given summons by the Wolfboro Police for criminal trespass. Criminal trespass. But if you go 10 feet across the hall, there's a room where, oh, you don't need masks over there. Just in here where the school board members are, you need masks there, not over there. One of those people went to the police commission and filed a complaint against the police commission. A week later, lawyers got involved, and the lawyers said, well, we're going to drop the complaints if you drop the complaint against the police commission. That's nice. Next day, they got a letter, an email, I should say, from the, I believe it's either the state prosecutor or the assistant county attorney, saying that if you do not drop your 91A requests for school curriculum material, you're going to be reported to the New Hampshire Attorney General's office. They don't want you to see that. They don't want to hear from you. But we're going to change that. Rick talked about some of the legislation we passed last year, historic legislation, bullying. The commissioner mentioned bullying. If your school district ignores your complaints about bullying, you now have the right to sue